So I had another admission back up in Edinburgh, and that was my final admission. I was like 15 going on 16 then, and CAM's like you transition into adult services at like 16, 17.
Right.
So I was there again for about another 8 months, discharged, and started the transition into adult services, which I've been told like adult services is a whole different ball game. Like it's like
in what way?
Like you're an adult now, it's your responsibility. I think like I've had so many admissions because you'd get to a certain point and they'd be like, right, you're going into hospital, like, but it wouldn't be that. It was obviously a very low weight, but it wasn't extremely like dangerously low. As whereas opposed to adults, because you're an adult, you've got kind of more responsibility, and it's like the guidelines are more like you've got to be a lot more underweight and a lot lower BMI in order to not be taken seriously, but to kind of get proper treatment, because there's not enough beds basically. So I got referred, like I was transitioning to adult services, and that was a massive trigger because I felt like I wasn't like getting taken seriously. I wasn't getting any support really. It was kind of just I had a CPN, but they didn't really know anything specifically about eating disorders. And then my weight just dramatically dropped to like a very dangerous level, and I got admitted to like a medical ward. Again, I was like 16, 17 on this medical ward full of patients with dementia. Like I was probably the youngest one there. People that not their fault because it was just a generic medical ward. They didn't know kind of anything about eating disorders. And at this point, because my weight had dropped so much, like my mental state was just absolutely like gone. And I
can imagine, especially like being at that sort of lower weight. I imagine it has so many effects on things like energy, mental focus, and so many other aspects in your life.
And I think like the eating disorder just completely had a hold of us by then. Like looking back now, I don't even see that as me. And like some of the things that I would do is just so like deceiving and like just awful. And from that like medical ward, I got admitted to like my first adult inpatient hospital, which was just absolutely like, I think that's safe to say, the worst time of my life, to be honest. I was at the lowest weight that I've ever been, and completely just I can't even like explain, because it doesn't feel like it was me, and I can't.
So was that lower than when you first got admitted when you were like 13 or 14?
Oh yeah, like ridiculously low. Like now in the gym, it's funny because I'm lifting plates that are almost what I used to weigh, and I'm like, what? That is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I got ridiculously low. Like my like physical health was just really, really bad. Constantly on like observations because of just like heart rate, things like that was just really poor.
So would it be really high or really low?
Really,
your heart rate?
really low. Really low. Yeah, body temperature was like really low. Blood sugars, just everything was just completely off.
How low are we speaking on the heart rate, out of interest?
I can't remember, George.
No.
I can't remember. Honestly, that whole time, because of being such a low body weight, my like functioning, it's a bit of a blur, to be honest. I can only really remember like, I guess the things that stand out are like the more traumatic events that happened during that admission. But eventually during that admission, I actually got sectioned because I wasn't making any progress with my weight. I was like falsifying my weight, which is quite a common thing in eating disorders, because I really didn't want to be gaining weight. I was then falsifying it, so it looked like I was gaining weight on the scale, but really I was just kind of like water loading, just doing anything to kind of just trick the system, basically.
Do you have any sort of knowledge as to why that was at the time? Like, what was causing you to do those things? Or was it just you were that far deep that
I think,
you just weren't sort of thinking rationally anymore?
Definitely. The eating disorder just had so much of a hold on us that I just wasn't thinking rationally anymore. And the thought, I didn't want to gain any weight. I didn't want to kind of do anything they were asking me to do. But it was definitely just because of any rationality at that point had just kind of gone out the window completely. I was sectioned and put on an NG feed. So the eating side of things was taken out of my control then. I had no choice.
So is that like a drip with basically liquid food?
Yeah, basically like through your nose, tube through your nose. And I was on like observations where like I'd have to have someone with us 24/7, like arm's length as well, because I was just at risk to myself, which is crazy to think now, because this is the part, I think that's the lowest that I've ever been, like physically. So
is this 16, did you say?
Yeah, 16, 17. And because it had kind of been taken out of my control, I had no option but to kind of just go with it and gain the weight, get better physically to get out, really.
Thank you very much for watching this clip of the podcast. If you'd like to see the full episode, click here. If you're new, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed it, please drop it a like below. Thank you very much.